Most of my memories of the mill are from a distance, being hushed in playmates' homes where the fathers were sleeping, men streaming out of the mill gates at shift change, lunch boxes in hand, mostly dressed in green gabardine work pants and shirts, the long line of cars coming through the cut. At some point I had the standard mill tour shrieking along with the hydraulic debarker when it sent a knot screaming into the glass we were standing behind, watching the little dozer boats shoving logs around the log pond. We were all told the story of a man slipping into the wood chipper and the tiny body parts that were recovered. And when the craft mill was built, the smell. It seemed like a noisy, dirty, and dangerous place, and I was happy to keep my distance. But like many others in town, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the mill. My father, Herb Peters, and his two brothers, Oscar and Harry, came to Powell River from their family's Saskatchewan farm to work winters after World War II. It was here Dad met my mom, Elizabeth Anderson. They married in 1949. He worked as a millwright until 1953 when he contracted polio, just 6 weeks before I was born, the youngest of 3 kids. He spent the next 2 years in Vancouver recuperating before we all moved into the house he'd been building on Quebec Street before he got sick. As he was left a paraplegic, his former workmates provided lots of support. Neighbor Charlie Kirk, with some help from my brother, soldered together the wheelchair made of copper pipes that Dad designed, a chair light enough to handle easily when we were traveling. Frank Bemrose helped build an elevator Dad designed for the 2-story house my parents built down at Grief Point. I seem to recall millfelt used as insulating curtains on the big windows that rattled in the winter storms. I came home from Ottawa, where I was most of the way through a journalism program at Carleton University. I applied for and was offered a summer job leading tourists on those mill tours. It was a prestigious job and one of the few that paid a girl a decent wage. My family was thrilled. I had, however, stopped in at the Powell River News and Town Crier to see if I could drum up work as a reporter. Since I could take and develop photos, I was hired part-time to manage the last vestiges of the women's pages and write human interest features. When the work became full-time, I figured not working at the mill became a lucky choice. That luck was doubled when the Pulp, Paper and Woodworkers of Canada shut down several BC mills, including ours, in early August. It also shut down the mill tours. It was October before they went back to work, by which time I was in Ottawa. But the summer was a warm, sunny holiday for many mill workers, including my new stepfather, Albert Berger, who had married my mom earlier that spring. My dad died in 1970. We were all glad to have him in the family. He worked in the mill, as had my dad, operating the machine he called the cherry picker, the device that plucked the logs out of the mill pond where he had danced on said logs for many years, and delivered them to the conveyor belt, bringing them into the mill to be processed. Somehow he did that and managed to read, mostly history, while he was at it. His paperbacks were all twisted out of shape by the clothes pegs he used to hold them open. One of my newspaper stories that summer featured the activities of several men who had the summer off, memories not of the mill, but of a summer with clear blue skies above the red and white smokestack. The names in that story are Paul Jungen, George Sylvester, Frank Bemrose, Ab Berger, my stepfather, Frank MacDonald, Henry Hill, Ken Shelton, Marvin Yaroshuk, and 3 aldermen, Jerry Gray, Clarence Dazelle, and Jack Liebenschel.